My name is Emily. One night, my own father looked across the dinner table and called me a leech, like I was a bill he was tired of paying. What happened after that unraveled things I didn't even know he controlled. If you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments. I got home just before 6, dropped my bag by the door, and tied my hair back the way I always did on workdays. Dinner was already half planned in my head. Chicken, rice, something green. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep everyone fed without comments. My part-time shift had run late, but nobody asked about that. My father sat at the table scrolling on his phone. My mother moved plates around like she was rearranging the same problem. An uncle talked about gas prices. Someone mentioned a weekend barbecue. Normal topics, predictable ones. Money came up the way it always did, sideways and casual, like weather. Richard finally looked up. "You know," he said, "it's getting old." And no one asked what he meant. He nodded toward me, still holding his phone. "I'm tired of paying for a leech." The word landed clean. No build-up, no warning. A fork paused halfway to someone's mouth. My cousin let out a short laugh that didn't connect to anything. Nobody said my name. Nobody pushed back. Plates stayed where they were. I kept standing at the counter, hands wet from rinsing rice. No argument came out. No defense followed. The room kept breathing like nothing had changed. Richard leaned back. "It's just numbers," he added. "I've been reviewing the support accounts. End of the month is coming." That part he said lightly, like he was reminding someone about trash day. My phone vibrated on the counter. Or rather, it didn't. The spot where alerts usually popped up stayed blank. I picked it up and opened the banking app tied to the family account. The screen loaded longer than usual, then showed fewer options than it had that morning. My mother cleared her throat. "Dinner's almost ready." Someone asked if anyone wanted more bread. The conversation bent away, obedient. Richard glanced at the hallway. "The security system's down for maintenance," he said, "before anyone asks." No one had. The app refreshed again. A small line of text replaced the balance. "Temporarily unavailable." No explanation, no red warning, just absence. I dried my hands, pushed my chair back, and slid my phone into my pocket. "Where are you going?" my mother asked. "Just stepping out," I said. Richard didn't look up this time. "Don't be dramatic." I walked past the table, past the plates, past the part of the house where everything still belonged to him. The door opened easily. Outside, the evening air felt exactly the same as it had an hour earlier. The phone came back out. The app opened again. Still nothing. A notification finally appeared, late and polite, asking me to try again later. I stood there, scrolling, refreshing, waiting for something to explain itself, while laughter drifted through the door behind me. The next morning started with a schedule change text from my manager. "Going to need you to take the week off. Things are slow." No explanation, no apology, just a line that looked copied and pasted. The kind of message that pretends it isn't personal while landing exactly that way. I replied with a simple, "Okay," because anything else would have sounded like an argument. At home, the house moved around me differently. No one raised their voice. No doors slammed. That somehow made it worse. My mother spoke to me the way people do when they're trying not to escalate. Careful, distant, like I might break if handled wrong. Richard, meanwhile, became generous with his story. He told it to my aunt over speakerphone while I poured cereal. "She's an adult," he said. "At some point, you stop enabling." The word enabling traveled fast. By noon, it had reached cousins, neighbors, and at least one family friend who texted to ask if I was doing okay, in the same tone people use when they already picked a side. Nobody asked what had actually happened. Nobody asked to see anything. They nodded at the version where he was firm but fair, and I was emotional and ungrateful. When I stepped outside to check the mail, Mrs. Adler from 2 houses down smiled without showing her teeth. "Your dad's been under a lot of stress," she said. "Families go through phases." I thanked her for the concern. The mailbox was empty anyway. By mid-afternoon, my phone finally buzzed with something useful, an email from the bank. The subject line read, "Account Access Update." It looked like the kind of notice you'd ignore if you weren't already on edge. The message explained that the account was temporarily restricted due to an administrative review. No wrongdoing suspected, no action required, just patience. The tone was polite, neutral, almost friendly. The system didn't care why I needed money. It only cared that a checkbox somewhere had been clicked. I forwarded the email to myself and took screenshots, mostly because Maya had taught me to do that with anything that could disappear later. She came by that evening with takeout and didn't ask how I was feeling. "Do you still have copies of your paperwork?" she asked instead. "Some of it." "Good, keep it that way." She listened while I filled in the gaps, not with commentary, with pauses. "Don't argue," Maya said when I finished. "Don't explain, don't defend, just collect." Richard passed through the kitchen while we talked. "Teaching her how the real world works?" he asked, nodding at Maya. "About time." Maya smiled back, slow and polite. "Something like that." He left, satisfied. That seemed to be his default now. Calm, certain. The posture of someone whose version had already been accepted. Later, my mother slid a folder onto the counter without meeting my eyes. "Your father wants you to look these over," she said. Inside were forms I'd seen before, support agreements, authorization pages, all marked with yellow tabs. The language was dense but familiar. The deadline was new. End of month. "That's soon," I said. "He's trying to help you transition," she replied. That word again, transition. Like I was moving apartments, not being pushed out. Dinner came and went with small talk. No one mentioned the folder. No one asked what I planned to do. I sat there flipping pages, noticing how my name appeared everywhere without ever being the one in charge. Another email arrived while I was still at the table. This one thanked me for my patience during scheduled maintenance. The timing was almost impressive. Richard glanced over. "See? Just process." I nodded because nodding required less energy than speaking. Later, Maya stood with me near the front door. "He's giving you a deadline," she said. "That's not generosity, that's leverage." "What happens if I don't sign?" I asked. She shrugged. "Looks like you already know." Richard cleared his throat from the living room. "End of the month," he said again. "Sign or start packing." The folder from the counter stayed with me, not as a decision, just as weight. Pages slid against each other every time it moved, a reminder that something had already been set up long before anyone bothered to tell me. Maya came back the next afternoon with her laptop. "Let's look," she said. We spread papers across the table, not reading for meaning at first, just matching shapes, headings, dates. My name appeared in predictable places. Then a page surfaced that didn't fit, a photocopy, financial power of attorney. My signature sat at the bottom, neat and confident. "That's yours?" Maya asked. "It looks like it." The date hit harder than the signature. 5 years ago. I was 19, still living at home, still saying yes to whatever landed in front of me if it kept things smooth. The expiration line ran straight through the page. End of month. That phrase again. Maya pulled up my old email account, the one I barely used anymore. We searched by attachment, by file type, by my father's name. There it was, a family email thread buried between holiday plans and forwarded articles. Subject line about taxes, nothing urgent. The attachment sat there like background noise. No explanation, no follow-up. "You didn't open it," Maya said. "No." "But it went through your inbox." That was enough. My phone buzzed while we were still looking at the screen. "Richard, let's make this easy. Just sign the new forms, then everything stays calm." No greeting, no question mark. I didn't reply. Another message followed. "Richard, this doesn't need to get complicated." Maya raised an eyebrow. "He's tightening," she said, "and he knows you saw something." Against better judgment, I drove to the bank. The building smelled like paperwork and waiting. A teller led me to a small desk and listened while I explained that I wanted to understand a restriction on an account tied to my name. She nodded a lot. "Can you tell me who authorized the changes?" I asked. She typed, clicked, paused. "This is standard procedure," she said, "when a power of attorney is involved." The phrase landed with all the warmth of a hold message. She printed a summary and slid it across. My father's name appeared everywhere. Mine appeared where consent was assumed. "So if I don't agree?" I asked. She smiled, practiced and careful. "Then the account follows the existing authorization." Another pause. "This is standard procedure." I thanked her, took the paper, and left. My phone rang before I reached the car. Richard. "Bank already?" he asked. The calm in his voice had weight to it. That was fast. I wanted information. "That's not how this works," he said. "You don't go around asking questions without telling me." I didn't know I had to. Silence stretched, then shifted. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. "There's a reason adults handle finances." "So sign," I said. "Sign," he confirmed, and we move on. Traffic crawled while he talked, instructions layered over each other, how this was for my benefit, how pushing back made me look unstable, how people were already concerned. "I don't want to embarrass you," he added. That was the warning. "I just want you safe," he said, "and cooperative." The call ended without a goodbye. By the time I got home, another email waited. Updated forms, a polite note about efficiency, a deadline bolded at the bottom. Maya stood in the kitchen reading the same message on her phone. "He didn't wait," she said. "No. You walking into the bank told him you weren't blind anymore." My phone buzzed again, a voicemail notification this time. I didn't play it, not yet. The house felt different, not louder, not tense, just organized around an outcome that wasn't mine. The folder opened again on the counter. The old signature stared back at me. So did the new blank line beside it. Another text came through. "Richard, end of month, don't test me." My thumb hovered over the screen. Not to type, just to hold the phone steady. The lock happened without ceremony. No warning text, no call, just a failed payment at the grocery store when the card reader blinked and asked me to try another method. The cashier waited. A line formed behind me. I slid the card back into my wallet and paid with the last 20 I had in cash. By the time I got home, 3 more notifications sat on my phone. Rent app declined. Phone bill pending. A short message from the bank explaining that access had been fully suspended under existing authorization. Richard was in the living room, reading like nothing had shifted. "It's done," he said without looking up. "You're officially off support." My mother stood near the doorway, arms crossed like she was bracing for weather. "You agreed to this years ago," Richard added. "The paperwork is clear." He tapped the folder on the table, the same one I had been flipping through for days. "You signed," he said. "I just followed through." An aunt called that afternoon, not to ask how I was holding up. "Your father showed us the documents," she said. "It's all legal. You can't act surprised." A cousin followed with a text suggesting I apologize before things went too far. Another relative suggested space would help everyone cool down. The message came with a smile emoji that didn't belong anywhere near the situation. By evening, my mother knocked on my door. "Your uncle thinks it might be best if you stay somewhere else for a bit," she said, "just to keep peace." "And how long?" I asked. She hesitated. "That depends on you." Richard didn't join that conversation. He didn't need to. Maya came by after dinner, not with solutions, with questions. "Did he ever copy your documents?" she asked. "I don't know." "The security system," she said. "When was it down?" The timing clicked without needing explanation. That night at the table, the casual mention, the way no one had asked. We checked the system log, maintenance requests submitted by Richard, access window logged, downloads recorded from the home network. "So he didn't just wait for consent," Maya said. "He prepared." The proof sat there, boring and precise. Dates, file names, my information handled like inventory. "That's the pattern," she added. "He creates permission, then urgency, then isolation. None of that changed the fact that my balance was zero. The next morning, Richard slid a printed notice across the counter. "End of week," he said. "That's when you need to be out if you're not signing." The paper listed expectations: clean room, return keys, no mention of money, no mention of the card that no longer worked. "I'm being reasonable," he said. "You're choosing the hard way." A bank email arrived while he talked. It thanked me for my understanding during the resolution process. The tone was calm, almost appreciative. Maya read it over my shoulder. "They always sound polite when they're done taking something," she said. By afternoon, my phone stopped buzzing altogether. Service suspended. The carrier offered to restore it once payment cleared. The app suggested enrolling in autopay. Richard watched from the hallway. "Consequences," he said. "That's how people grow." My mother avoided my eyes while folding laundry. A cousin stopped by to pick up something and didn't step past the doorway. "I hope you learned from this," she said. Maya didn't argue with anyone. She sat on the edge of my bed while I sorted through drawers. "Staying means letting him keep rewriting reality," she said. "Leaving doesn't fix it, but it ends the loop." The old plan had been simple. Keep working, save slowly, move out clean, no drama, no lines drawn. That plan was gone. I pulled a suitcase from the closet and laid it open on the floor. Clothes went in first, then documents, birth certificate, social security card, copies of everything Maya told me to keep. Richard passed by the doorway again. "You don't have to do this," he said. "One signature." I folded a jacket and set it on top. Another message came through on Maya's phone. Richard had added her to a thread. "Let's be adults about this," the text read. She didn't reply. I picked up a stack of books from the shelf, paused, then put half of them back. The suitcase wouldn't close otherwise. The room looked smaller as it emptied. Not sad, just functional. Maya stood and handed me a portable charger. "You'll need this," she said. Footsteps moved through the hallway, voices lowered. A door closed somewhere. I zipped the suitcase halfway, stopped to tuck in a corner, and reached for the handle while the rest of the room waited, stripped down to what mattered as I stood there packing, not done yet, knowing the decision had already been forced, knowing the next step would finish it, and pulling the zipper the rest of the way while the house stayed still around me, letting me go without saying anything at all. The first night away from the house ended on Maya's couch with my suitcase half open and my phone plugged into a portable charger that blinked like it was doing me a favor. No money had moved. No one had called to check if I landed somewhere safe. That silence wasn't dramatic. It was logistical. Morning came with a reminder email from the credit card company. "Payment missed. Account under review." The message thanked me for my continued loyalty. I deleted it, then pulled it back out of the trash and forwarded it to myself. Maya handed me coffee and didn't ask if I slept. "You need to check your credit report," she said. "Not later, now." We sat at her kitchen table while I logged in. The report loaded slowly, then filled the screen with numbers that weren't opinions. Accounts I recognized. Limits I didn't remember agreeing to. An old address still listed as primary. "That's how we kept leverage," Maya said. "If you looked stable on paper, nobody questioned control." Another search brought up authorization records. Some expired, some still active. The same law office name appeared on multiple documents. "That firm sent emails to the whole family years ago," Maya said. "Estate planning, trusts. Everyone thought it was housekeeping." The pattern didn't feel shocking. It felt obvious in a way that only shows up after something breaks. The mistakes lined up without commentary. Staying silent to avoid conflict. Signing what was put in front of me because it came from family. Ignoring small shifts because they didn't hurt yet. No meltdown followed, no dramatic realization, just a clear picture of how often compliance had been mistaken for peace. My phone buzzed with another message from Richard. "Richard, you don't need to do this the hard way." I didn't reply. He sent another. "Richard, All of this goes away if you stop resisting. Maya read it over my shoulder. He's still negotiating, she said. That means he thinks he has time. What if he does? I asked. She shrugged. Then you change the clock. We made a short list, not a plan, just next steps that didn't involve convincing anyone. Open a new account without shared access. Pull every email tied to financial consent. Request copies directly from the bank and the law office. Freeze credit if needed. The price showed up quickly. No help covering rent, no backup card. No returning to the house for forgotten items. That part wasn't discussed. It was assumed. Maya cleared a spot on the table. Use my laptop, she said. Don't rely on your phone. The bank's website asked security questions that felt outdated. First pet, childhood street. Things that assumed a shared history couldn't be weaponized. I answered carefully, double-checking spelling like accuracy mattered more now. Another email arrived while files downloaded. This one from the carrier, confirming service suspension. The subject line said, "Action required," like I'd missed a dentist appointment. Maya laughed once, short and sharp. They always frame it like you forgot something, she said, not like it was taken. By noon, a folder sat on the desktop with subfolders labeled by year. Screenshots, PDFs, forwarded threads. Anything that showed consent had been assumed, extended, or reused. Richard called again. I let it ring. Then he left a voicemail. People are starting to worry, he said. This is becoming unnecessary. Unnecessary. Like friction in a machine that ran better when one part stayed still. I played it once, then saved it. Another message followed. Richard, I'm trying to protect you. I forwarded that, too. Maya checked the time. You're past the point of fixing this by talking, she said. So stop talking. We worked until the laptop warmed up. Files copied, passwords changed. A new email address set up that didn't include my name. That felt important for reasons I couldn't explain yet. Late afternoon, Maya slid a printed list across the table. Bank branch near here, she said. Law office downtown. Independent credit bureau. That's a lot, I said. She nodded. It's not a fight, it's routing. The sun shifted across the floor. My phone stayed face down. I sent one message, not to Richard, to my manager. Available for extra shifts, any location. No response came back. Dinner was leftovers, eaten standing up. Maya checked her phone and frowned. He added me to a group chat, she said. Your aunt, your cousin, me. What did he say? Nothing dramatic, she said. That's the point. The message read like a memo about family concern and cooperation. No threats, no insults, just framing. I forwarded it to myself. Night came without ceremony. The charger blinked again. The laptop battery dipped. Maya stood and stretched. You ready to stop reacting? She asked. I opened the laptop again and created a new folder. Labeled it Evidence. Simple. Accurate. Files dragged over one by one. Emails, logs, copies. The shape of something solid started to form. The last thing I did was back it all up twice, to 2 different places, watching the progress bar crawl forward while the room stayed still, while the phone remained silent, while the house I'd left stayed elsewhere, and the only sound was keys clicking as the files finished copying and I reached for the charger again, keeping the laptop open. Not done yet, just starting. The first clue came from a name I didn't recognize. Maya was scrolling through the documents I'd backed up when she stopped and leaned closer to the screen. This account, she said. Why is your name attached to this one? It wasn't mine, not really. The balance was larger than anything I'd ever touched. The account holder was listed as a family trust, one I'd heard mentioned in passing but never discussed directly. My name sat there anyway, secondary, authorized, quietly useful. We followed the trail backward, old filings, archived emails, notes from the same law office that kept appearing. The pattern widened as we went. This wasn't about paying your bills, Maya said. It was about you being clean on paper. Clean meant stable. Stable meant harmless. Harmless meant no one asked questions. The next document confirmed it. Another power of attorney. Not mine this time, a cousin's, then an aunt's. Different years, same structure, same firm, same casual email delivery with no explanation attached. The family emails suddenly read differently. Requests to sign and send back. Mentions of deadlines framed as routine. Everything labeled housekeeping. The security system clicked into place next. The maintenance window. The file access logs. Downloads that lined up exactly with the dates those documents were created. He wasn't hiding, Maya said. He was organizing. That realization didn't hit like betrayal. It landed like a ledger balancing itself. My role hadn't been emotional. It had been structural. A message from Richard broke the momentum. Richard, you're accessing documents you're not authorized to review. 5 minutes later, an email arrived from a legal address I recognized. Subject, cease and desist notice. The letter accused me of unauthorized access, misrepresentation, and interference. It demanded I stop contacting financial institutions and destroy copies of any materials obtained without consent. Maya read it twice. He's moving fast, she said, and he's trying to scare you into dropping the paper trail. The timing made sense. He wasn't reacting to emotion anymore. He was protecting a system. Another call came in. This one from my aunt. I never said he pressured you, she said quickly. I don't want to be dragged into something legal. You were there, I said. I don't remember it that way, she replied. Please don't involve me. The line went dead. One by one, people adjusted their memory. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to avoid standing anywhere firm. We kept going anyway. A scanned document I'd relied on heavily stopped loading halfway through. The file name remained, but the contents showed as incomplete. No signature visible, no footer. Maya checked the metadata. Original wasn't saved, she said. This copy isn't enough. One piece gone didn't break the whole structure, but it weakened it. That was the point. Another email arrived, this one from the bank's legal department, acknowledging receipt of a request from Richard's attorney. My access to records was suspended pending review. The system worked exactly the way it was built to, smoothly, neutrally, on behalf of whoever filed first with the right language. Richard followed up with a voicemail. I didn't want it to go this way, he said. You're forcing my hand. No raised voice, no anger, just administrative disappointment. Maya didn't play it again. He's not trying to win an argument, she said. He's trying to freeze the board. The weight of that settled in slowly. This wasn't a family dispute spiraling out of control. It was a structure that relied on silence, speed, and the assumption that no one would push back publicly. I stopped checking messages. Focus shifted to timestamps, headers, and sequence. What could be verified without permission? What existed independently of family consent? A courier envelope arrived that afternoon. Official, heavy. The cease and desist in printed form, complete with a request for acknowledgement. Maya slid it back across the table. This means the next move can't be private, she said. He's closing that door. The bank portal refreshed with fewer options. The credit bureau confirmed a temporary freeze. Everything narrowed. Richard sent one last text. Richard, we can still handle this quietly. Quietly meant contained. Quietly meant controlled. The documents on the screen told a different story. Too many names, too many dates, too many identical structures to be coincidence. This wasn't about me stepping out of line. It was about me stepping out of position. Another notification arrived. Certified mail delivery scheduled. Legal correspondence pending. Maya stood and pulled on her jacket. You're not wrong, she said. You're just early. The conference room didn't belong to anyone in my family, which was the point. Neutral walls, neutral chairs, a long table with name placards placed by someone who didn't care about history. A representative from the bank sat at one end with a laptop open. A compliance officer joined by phone. Richard arrived 5 minutes early and nodded to everyone like this was a routine check-in. "Let's keep this constructive," he said. I placed my folder on the table and didn't respond. The bank representative cleared her throat. "We're here to review authorization concerns tied to multiple accounts," she said. "We'll proceed in order." I slid forward the first set of documents: email logs, attachments, dates highlighted but not explained. "These were sent to me," I said. "Family distribution. No description, no consent explained." Richard leaned back. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "Standard family paperwork." The representative nodded once and typed. I pushed the second stack forward. Copies of the power of attorney, expiration dates, signatures aligned side by side. "These documents were activated without direct confirmation," I said, "and extended beyond their original scope." Richard smiled. "She signed them," he said. "There's nothing improper about using existing authorization." The compliance officer's voice came through the speaker. "We'll need to verify activation logs," she said. That was the third piece. I slid a printed system report across the table. Access timestamps, IP addresses, file downloads during the maintenance window. The bank representative stopped typing. Richard's smile stayed in place. "You're overcomplicating this," he said. "I was managing household finances." The compliance officer paused. "These logs show bulk access," she said, "and cross-account linkage." Richard's jaw tightened. "That's still within my authority," he said. The representative looked at the screen again. "Not across unrelated trusts," she said, "and not after expiration." Richard turned toward me. "You didn't need to bring this here," he said. "We could have handled it privately." The compliance officer didn't respond to that. "We've completed our review," she said. "Authorization was extended improperly." Richard leaned forward. "That's not accurate," he said. "I have documentation." "Which we've reviewed," she replied, "and which does not grant ongoing control." The room stayed still. The bank representative's laptop chimed. She glanced down. "Authorization revoked successfully," the system message read aloud before she caught herself. No one laughed. No one apologized for the timing. Richard's face changed, just slightly. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're siding against family?" The representative closed her laptop. "We're siding with policy," she said. The compliance officer added, "Control has been terminated, effective immediately." Richard looked at me like I'd broken something valuable. "You're doing this to yourself," he said. I didn't answer. The representative gathered the documents. "You'll receive confirmation by email," she said. "All affected accounts are now independent." Richard stood up. "This isn't over," he said. The compliance officer responded evenly. "It is for us." The meeting ended without ceremony. Chairs slid back, papers stacked. The room returned to neutral. Outside, my phone buzzed. Bank notification. Authorization changes completed. Richard walked past without another word. I stayed long enough to collect my folder, then left. The fallout didn't announce itself all at once. It arrived in pieces, through other people. A cousin stopped returning calls. An aunt sent a short message about needing distance while things settled. Someone else asked if I was okay, then added that they hoped Richard was handling everything responsibly. The phrasing mattered. Handling, managing. Control didn't disappear overnight. It just stopped being invisible. The bank moved faster than the family did. A confirmation email arrived the morning after the meeting. It listed accounts by number, not by name. Oversight implemented. Access restricted. Review ongoing. No commentary, no apology. Another email followed 10 minutes later. Subject: Account status update. Your account is now independent. The sentence ended with a period. No congratulations, no explanation of what independence would cost. Richard didn't call. He sent one message instead. "Richard, this didn't have to get ugly." I didn't reply. A week later, a relative mentioned that Richard was dealing with compliance issues. The word came wrapped in concern, like something unfortunate had happened to him. Someone else said he'd hired an advisor. Another said the bank was asking questions he didn't like answering. The house went quiet without asking me back. I signed a lease with my own name and my own account. The place wasn't impressive. Clean enough, close to a bus line. The landlord asked for proof of income, not family context. A job offer came through 2 days later. Entry level, fewer hours than I wanted, enough to start. I accepted without negotiating. Maya helped me move the few things I'd kept, boxes labeled in marker. No furniture worth arguing over. The apartment filled slowly, like it understood it wasn't permanent yet. Richard sent another message that night. Richard, you made your point. The implication lingered. Points could be walked back. This could still be reframed as a disagreement that went too far. I didn't correct him. The bank sent a final notice confirming the freeze on any authorization tied to my name. The language was careful, protective, final. I forwarded it to myself and archived the thread. Maya leaned against the counter while I unpacked. You going to see him? She asked. Not now. Ever? That depends on what he needs. She nodded. That's a good answer. The last thing left was the keys. They'd been in my bag since the night I left, heavy enough to remind me where they belonged. Useless now. I went back once, early, while the house still slept. No announcement, no discussion. The door opened the same way it always had. Nothing had changed in the kitchen. The table still held the same shape. The counter still caught mail meant for everyone. I placed the keys in an envelope and wrote Richard's name on the front. No note, no explanation. The envelope sat on the table where he'd left paperwork for me to sign weeks earlier. A notification buzzed on my phone as I turned to leave. Bank alert. Review completed. No further action required. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. The street stayed empty. The sky hadn't decided what it was doing yet. Back at the apartment, I set my phone down and let it stay still. No messages followed. No last-minute negotiations. The silence felt different now. Not strategic, just real. Maya texted once. Maya, you okay? I sent back a thumbs up. Accurate enough. The job paperwork waited on the table. Orientation scheduled. Direct deposit set up under my name alone. Another bank email arrived while I filled out forms. Subject, welcome. Thank you for choosing to manage your finances independently. The wording tried too hard. I closed it. I didn't forgive Richard, not in the way people like to hear about. There was no conversation where understanding suddenly appeared. No reset. If forgiveness existed, it stayed private, unshared, unused as leverage. The last box got unpacked. The apartment looked unfinished, which felt honest. I lay down on the mattress without sheets and set an alarm for the morning shift. The phone charged beside me, steady and unremarkable. Before sleeping, I checked the lock twice. Habit, not fear. Outside, the streetlight flickered and stayed on. The keys were no longer mine. The accounts no longer linked. The house no longer reachable. Morning would come whether anyone noticed or not. I closed my eyes while the city stayed quiet enough, knowing I'd be gone before sunrise mattered to anyone else, knowing the only thing left to do was get up when the alarm sounded and step forward without waiting for permission again.